Doug, you were inside of that courtroom when this verdict was read. This has been something that you have been representing Cassie Ventura for well over a year. A lot at stake here. Yes, for Sean Combs, but for Cassie Ventura. What were you feeling when you were inside that courtroom?
Well, I think there was a lot of mixed emotions in the courtroom, generally speaking. Obviously, we would have liked to have seen convictions on the RICO charges and the sex trafficking charges, but Cassie prompted this investigation by the Southern District, and now Sean Combs stands before the court as a convicted felon of 2 federal crimes. He faces significant incarceration. Not the exact outcome that we wanted, but we are grateful to the jury for finding a guilty verdict on those 2 federal crimes.
I want to get back to what you were just talking about, but first I have to ask you, have you had the chance to speak with Cassie?
I have, yeah. So I had an opportunity to speak with her, as did the government prosecution team. She's of the same view. Back in November of 2023, Cassie had a choice. She could accept an 8-figure settlement offer and move on with her life and sign non-disclosure agreements, or she could file a civil lawsuit and hold Sean Combs responsible for what he did to her and shine a light on his behavior. She showed great courage, great bravery to choose the latter of those 2 options. She turned away the money at first. Ultimately, the case settled the day after. And she went through a year-long process of preparing for this trial. I thought, and I think people who saw her testify, she was a great witness. She was graceful. She shined a light on this. Jane read the complaint. She came forward. Many other people have come forward, are going to be seeking to hold Sean Combs responsible in the civil courts. And so it's not all lost. He's now, as I said, he's never been held responsible for anything in his lifetime. He was acquitted on charges when he was in New York with a gun case, and now he is a 2-time convicted felon, 2 federal charges. The government indicated after the jury verdict was read that they're going to be seeking consecutive terms, and they're going to be seeking lengthy prison incarceration. And so Cassie was comforted in knowing that not only has she played a role in the criminal prosecution, but that she has shined a light on this behavior by Sean Combs, and many other people have come forward, not only about him, but about other people in the entertainment world as well.
Now, I want to go back to something you said, which is when she filed that civil suit in November 2023, that this is really what started it all, and it really is in the civil sense, but also in the criminal sense. In this trial, and I was in the courtroom for most of the days, we heard both the defense and the prosecution say that this investigation, this federal investigation, began because of Cassie Ventura. How does that weigh on her to realize that Sean Combs would not have even been in a courtroom if not for her?
Well, I think it's given her some agency in life, where for 10 years he told her what had to be done and she had no choice. This was her ability to say, no, I'm not going to accept this 8-figure settlement. I'm going to file this lawsuit. And that's what she did. And so she is really gratified in knowing that other people have come out since the filing of the civil lawsuit. And that you're correct, as far as I know, there was no pending investigation into Sean Combs prior to her filing the civil lawsuit. We were contacted very soon after we filed, and this investigation ensued. And the team, the prosecution team, I thought did an excellent job. Again, not the outcome I'm sure that they wanted. They didn't get the top counts, but they at least were able to secure 2 convictions of 2 federal felony charges.
Now, you mentioned the settlement, which, as you are saying right here, that Cassie had 2 choices, which was take the money, sign an NDA, or file a civil suit. She chose to file the civil suit. Now, she did reach a settlement within 24 hours. It was very quick, but this was after she filed the civil suit, after all of her bombshell allegations were out in the world. And yet, in this trial, the defense seized on money, not just for Cassie, but also for Jane. The defense, and this is not a direct quote, I'm summarizing, but Mark Agnifilo, in his closing, he said, Cassie Ventura is the winner here. He called her the winner. He said she's sitting somewhere in the world With $30 million, she's not naive like the prosecutors are telling you. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she's the winner. How did that make you feel and her feel to use the word winner when the jury and the world, by the way, has seen her being horrifically beaten on camera?
Yeah, I mean, thanks to your great reporting and the video that saw the light of day, obviously Cassie Ventura at that point in time and today is not the winner. She endured 10 years of abuse where she had to engage in days-long sexual acts with UTIs. She alleged that she was raped. And so to call her a winner, even though she did get $30 million, part from, as she testified, part from Sean Combs, part from the hotel, no amount of money is going to ever undo what she had to endure and what she had to go through. So I think both she and I didn't really take well to that as her being a winner. And frankly, the fact of the matter is that when she testified, she had already been paid the $30 million. So she had no vested interest in anything other than telling the truth on that witness stand. And while the jury did not convict on the sex trafficking charge, I mean, I think it's important for your viewers to know, in the criminal justice system, the standard is very high. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. The civil justice system is very different. It's a preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. So it is a very high burden. The jury found that the government did not meet that burden, but that doesn't mean that what she said isn't true.
Mm-hmm. Now, his defense during their closing also called Cassie and Combs' relationship, and again, this is not a direct quote, but a great modern love story. How did she feel when she heard that? And I'm curious, has she been following all of the testimony? Because she was one of the first witnesses. She was on the stand for 4 days talking about what she says happened to her. Cassie, as we all know, is now a new mother of 3. She was on that witness stand when she was very pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant. Has she just been focused on family, or has she been following this, and how difficult has it been if she has been following?
Yeah, so, I mean, she is primarily and has been focused on her family. She did testify when she was 8 months pregnant, and she is really trying to look forward. And when I gave my statement after her testimony, I made very clear that she was looking forward. She did not want to think about the case any longer. She had given her testimony and now wanted to just concentrate on her family, and she's done that. I mean, obviously, it's almost impossible not to see some of the media about the case, and so she has seen some of that. I can tell you that some of the comments that were made in the closing argument I thought were repugnant, frankly. Calling those sorts of behaviors as a modern day relationship, saying that she enjoyed sex, saying she was a gangster, things like that. I don't think, even with the jury verdict, that they would have given that any credit. And I don't think anyone who actually listened to the testimony and watched the testimony would either. And I thought that those were sort of gratuitous comments that really weren't based on any real fact.
After Cassie filed her civil lawsuit in November 2023, since there has been roughly 70, that's 70 suits that have been filed against Sean Combs. He denies all of these allegations, but the allegations coming from women, men, minors over the course of decades, egregious accusations of people being drugged at auditions, being drugged at his infamous white parties, not remembering a single thing after they were handed a drink, and then being sexually assaulted. Given that none of these suits had come out prior to Cassie filing that lawsuit, does she feel like she has made a difference and like she is shining a light on not just the abuse that she alleged of Sean Combs, but for survivors around the world?
Yeah, definitely. And that was one of her major objectives, frankly, when she rejected an 8-figure settlement, was not only to shine a light, but to give a voice to others who were suffering in silence. And she knew that there were others out there. And so to now see, as reported, numbers in the 50, 60, 70 or more allegations or lawsuits, I think that she's been vindicated in what she did. So many people would never have chosen that path. You know, if you've got two paths, one is to take an 8-figure settlement and move on with your life versus taking the other path of rejecting it, and you might not see a penny, but you actually get to go public and shine a light on what happened, and maybe others come forward. She should really be applauded for what she did.
Mm-hmm. And as I said, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, I had asked them for some reporting if they had seen an influx of calls after Cassie came forward, and they had. The numbers really spiked. She spoke directly to survivors of domestic violence. When she posted on her Instagram, she thanked everyone, and she said that domestic violence is the problem. Has she been hearing from different survivors ever since she came forward?
A lot of the different organizations that support survivors have reached out to her and to us because she is really not the official spokesperson, but what she did was so brave and courageous, and so people see that, and they have shown fortitude in coming forward as well. I can tell you anecdotally as well, just that my law firm, which handles many of these cases, has seen a great increase in the number of cases since she came forward, because other people, women primarily, feel empowered that if Cassie can do this, I can do it as well. And so, my hat really goes out to her. I'm really proud to be her lawyer. There aren't many clients like her.
Mm-hmm. Now, when our team at CNN released that hotel surveillance footage, I had reached out to you for comment, which is a common practice in journalism, and you gave us a statement that we used in our report. But I've never been able to ask you a question, which I am curious. Had Cassie ever seen that video before our team aired it?
She hadn't, but we had described it in the complaint, and so when the video came out, it corroborated everything that she said. She had heard that a video was out there. She wasn't sure exactly what had happened with it, but she had never actually seen it. But it really, when we saw it and we look back at the complaint, it really, again, it was just amazing to see how it corroborated everything that she had said in that civil complaint.
So everything in her civil complaint was from her memory. It was her experience, and she had told you that.
That's right.
But she had not seen it. What was it like for her to see it? And I recognize that as I'm asking you this, it was our network that aired it, but to see it in such a public way, and suddenly have this very private moment out there. What was that like for her?
I think it was very disturbing for her. Again, she's never, and she never will get over the treatment that she suffered. If we didn't have that video, I'm sure Sean Combs would have denied that there was any physical incident at the hotel on that day. If she didn't have the pictures and photographs of other incidents, he would have denied those as well. And so obviously the video shows what he did. Her views and the general public views, I think, uniformly were disgusted by what was on that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think happens next with all of these civil suits? Of course, you do not represent all of them, but now that Sean Combs, he has been convicted, he's a criminal now. He was found by a jury to have committed 2 federal crimes, but as you said, not the outcome that you were necessarily hoping for. Do you believe that these civil accusers will be scared because he won't be serving life in prison, or do you believe that they will still be emboldened to pursue their claims against him?
Well, I think from a plaintiff's lawyer's perspective, they're probably happy, frankly, that he's not going to be in jail because, he'll have his assets. And they'll be able to take his deposition. They'll be able to participate in discovery. If he were in jail, sort of like Harvey Weinstein, those cases have been difficult to get any compensation for, given his situation. If he had been convicted on RICO, there may have been asset forfeiture along with that as well. So, just from a practical standpoint, not a bad thing for those civil cases. And even if he had been convicted of RICO and or sex trafficking, that wouldn't have necessarily have helped those other plaintiffs because most likely that sort of evidence would have been excluded from those civil trials anyway. So, net, I don't think there's really, it might even be a positive, frankly, for those other civil lawsuits. I can't really comment on, the strength of those lawsuits. We only have one of them actually pending, but, I hope that the ones that are valid all succeed.
And will you be pursuing that one client's claim?
For sure, yes.
So interesting to hear that perspective. And of course, you represented victims of Harvey Weinstein as well. Now, you're also a former prosecutor. So what do you think we're looking at here for sentencing when it comes to these two convictions? Each carry a maximum term of 10 years. The prosecutors have said that they will be pursuing these 20 years to be served consecutively. What do you think is realistic?
I don't think that I'm really the person that would be as qualified to answer that question, but I know the government feels strongly about seeking whatever maximum term that they can do under not only the federal laws but also the sentencing guidelines. And in addition, that they feel that some of the other non-acquitted facts that sort of go to bolster their position that he should be sentenced to maximum or consecutive terms, that they will pursue all of those avenues to the extent that they can do so in a legal and plausible way. And so it would be hard for me to ultimately guess, but I would say this: he definitely faces a substantial prison term, and I do believe he's going to be serving years, plural. It would be very difficult for me to gauge how many years, though.
Cassie took the stand for 4 days, and she testified about what, quite frankly, are some of the most embarrassing and traumatic moments of her life, things that she may have wanted to go to the grave with had it not been for testifying in this trial. How difficult was that for her, or was it cathartic in some sense?
I think it was both. It was both. It was very difficult, and it was cathartic. If you were in the courtroom and you observed her, she just answered the questions, I thought, in a very graceful, and I think I'm trying to speak as objectively as possible, I thought, in a forthright manner. I don't believe that the jury disbelieved her in reaching its conclusion. I think the jury ultimately found that the government hadn't met its burden beyond a reasonable doubt under a very complex and difficult statute. And when you think of sex trafficking, sometimes people conjure images of minors and bringing people in from other countries and things like that, and not this sort of behavior, which technically could be argued as sex trafficking. But I think that she, when she filed the civil complaint, she knew that a lot of this would become public. She didn't know at the time that the government would investigate it. But as that process and her preparations for trial ensued, she knew that she would be asked some very personal, detailed questions that she was prepared to do. She knew that she had to do it because she was vested in the process, and she put a lot of time and effort into it.
Mm-hmm. Was there ever a consideration that she wouldn't do this? When the government began investigating her claims and asked her to testify, did she ever say, I don't want to put myself?
There were a lot of times, yeah, Elizabeth. I think that there were, it was a roller coaster at times. There were certainly days where she didn't want to testify. And that's natural. It's a lot that the government was asking of her. And she ultimately did what they wanted her to do. She testified truthfully, but just having to subject yourself to cross-examination, and ultimately, when you're done, have a lawyer say the sorts of things that were said in the closing argument about her. That's not easy for anyone to endure, which is why I hold her in such high esteem.
Mm-hmm. Now, she has what appears to be a great support system around her. Her husband, Alex Fine, was in that courtroom during her testimony. I cannot imagine what that was like for him to hear about your wife, the mother of your children who you love so deeply, going through these horrific moments of abuse and torment that she spoke about. What was that like for Alex?
Yeah, very hard. I mean, he is her number one supporter and backer, and he really has helped change her life tremendously. When Cassie was ready to take her own life, obviously, she testified about wanting to just walk into oncoming traffic, and Alex obviously was there to help her. So, having him at her side has been enormously helpful for her and her parents. And she has some great other professional people helping her as well. One of whom was at the trial for the period of time that she testified, and she's been a really great facilitator. I'm happy to say that she works at Mount Sinai, Savvy, S-A-V-I. It's a great organization that helps victims cope with the sort of abuse that Cassie was coping with.
Mm-hmm. She spoke about that on the stand. She said that she has been in therapy. Is this something that she ever can fully heal from, or will these 10, 11 years always be part of her life?
I think it'll always be part of her life, unfortunately. I mean, you can heal, but you'll never forget. And she's in a much better place now, obviously, than she was 2 years ago. Going through drug rehabilitation and being sober and clean for as long now as she has really helped in that effort. But the abuse that she suffered, that's something that one doesn't forget. And you watch the video, for instance, which isn't isolated. The video obviously is isolated, but that was not an isolated event. Anyone who goes through that sort of abuse, it's impossible to ever forget it. But hopefully, over time, she'll move on. She has been compensated. And so, financially, she's in a good position, which certainly helps. But she's not, the winner, as the defense lawyer said. It's hard to call somebody a winner who has been physically abused for years and years and years, and who is willing to give up her own life to call that person a winner.
I mean, based on her testimony, for 10 years of her life or close to it, every week for half the week, she was in a dark hotel room with a strange man that she did not know. Again, according to her testimony, being forced into these sex acts. And as you said, that video from that hotel was not isolated. The jury, and really the world for the first time, heard about the scope of this violence that Cassie said that she endured. We saw photos. We heard her mom, Regina, talk on the stand about how she took photos of her daughter's body with those bruises. It's really just, it's unimaginable to think about what she went through. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think anyone who hasn't actually endured what she endured, which there aren't many people who have, it would be impossible for me or for you or for anyone for that matter to put yourself, in that place and to sort of think about sort of where she is mentally. But she's a strong person, and it takes a strong person with a lot of courage to do what she did. There aren't many people who would have chosen the path of filing a lawsuit and rejecting an 8-figure settlement that was right in front of her, just for the greater good. And history, I think, will show when we look back at this. History will be kind to Cassie Ventura, rightfully so, because of what she did. For the many people who have now come out with allegations against Sean Combs, for holding him responsible and now making him a 2-time felon of federal crimes, she should be applauded.
Mm-hmm. And this investigation did not begin until she filed her suit. Now we know that she cooperated with authorities in handing over evidence that she had. We know that from the trial. Right. Is it safe to say that none of this would have ever happened without your client? I
mean, from what I know, I think it's safe to say. Obviously, I'm not privy to what the government was looking at, if anything, prior to November of 2023. But it seems logical that she did prompt this. But it's entirely possible as well that they had an eye on him. Let's not forget, there were so many other people in this orbit. He had been prosecuted by the Manhattan DA's office before. And so it's possible.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, not the outcome that you were necessarily hoping for, but for Sean Combs to be even in a courtroom on trial for someone at his stature is extraordinary. Now to be convicted on 2 charges, he may not be serving life in prison, but he will still serve time on 2 very serious federal charges. Sean Combs will never be the same. Right. He will never be the Diddy or the Puff that everybody knew. Even if the jury did not convict him on the most serious charges, you believe that they believed Cassie's story. Do you think that he can ever operate in this world how he did, that he'll be a superstar, that he'll be having these parties? And I'm talking about after he serves this time. Or do you believe that based on the courage of your client coming forward, that things will never be the same?
I don't think things will ever be the same. Of course, there are Sean Combs supporters who have supported him from the beginning of this trial to the end, and they will continue to support him, I'm sure. But I don't think that he's going to go on in his sort of business world as this sort of megastar that he once was. The bottom line is that the facts are the facts, and there were a lot of facts that came out at this trial that were not even controverted, some of which the defense were very clear to say this case is not about domestic violence. We own that.
It was actually their defense. Their defense was, you probably won't think he's a good guy. He's
Right.
done indefensible things.
Yeah. And so to be someone who engages in domestic violence at their own admission, I think appropriately so, is not someone that our society should be embracing.
Mm-hmm. And Combs, when the verdict was read shortly after, he was being ushered out by the marshals because he is, of course, being held in custody. He knelt down. It seemed like he was praying. His family was cheering. His defense was crying. Yes, they evaded the most serious charges, but do you believe that they should be taking a victory lap right now?
For the reasons of what I just said about him engaging in this, pattern of violence, which was not controverted, which was actually they indicated it was true. I think victory laps are inappropriate, frankly. There are no winners and losers at all, regardless of the outcome of this trial. It's a really sad statement about what transpired, whether he was guilty or not guilty. Putting that aside, the things that came out at this trial are really deeply troubling, and I hope he does get the right help, that he is somehow able to be clean and sober and turns over a new leaf. But I think the clearest indication that is not going to happen is that when he was under investigation, he knew he was under investigation, he continued, according to Jane's testimony, in the same types of behaviors. And this is while he was, under investigation by the federal government. Now that he has been acquitted of sex trafficking and RICO violations after he serves his time on the charges which he was convicted for, it's hard for me to believe that he'll be a new man. But I hope for his sake, and for his family's sake, more importantly, frankly, that he does.
Final question. I'm sure Cassie is processing this all right now. This just happened today, less than a few hours ago. Is she proud of herself for doing this?
She is. And I spoke to her right after the verdict, and then I spoke with her with some of the government prosecutors, and she was thanking them. They were thanking her. She's in a good place. People shouldn't be concerned about Cassie. She has a loving family. She has beautiful children. She settled her civil cases. She did what she was asked to do. she's moving on with her life, and I think it'll be a beautiful life with her family and being a mother and a great wife.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you so much, Doug.
Okay, no problem.